Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Hey, I think I got that fixed. Thank you, Bridge MCP. All right. Okay. We're back. Anyhow, welcome to Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being here. Folks, we have a special program for you today. A very special program for you today. What is the topic going to be about today? The topics for today is as follows. About Barack Obama and Angela Merkel, a progressive must talk like this. Worker power, not inflationary. Worker power, not inflationary. Okay, folks, just want to make sure. Okay, Bridge says the sound is fixed. The sound is fixed. We have got YouTube up and running. Everything seems to be connected and working fine. Anyway, folks, by the way, why was the sound working? Because I have this new type of wireless mic that you guys actually brought into the fold so that we could get some better sound, and therefore it is great, good, and now. Anyway, folks, again, title of the show is about Barack Obama and Angela Merkel, a progressive must talk like this, worker power, not inflationary. Okay, I started out saying, what about cinema? What in God's name is cinema doing? Now she's talking about not wanting to have any tax increases on the wealthy. But she's willing to maybe, just maybe, we can talk a little bit about a wealth tax or something. Look, this is crazy. I think, look, I have no way of knowing. But she is acting like somebody who somebody is bribing. She is acting like somebody who somebody has something on. I don't know, folks, if you're just joining us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, please. Make sure that we get that thumbs up. If you're joining us on Facebook, please give us a like. I don't know if all the notifications went out yet. We'll see what occurs going forward. I have to do a few checks and balances as usual when we just get started. But the first thing that I'm going to do is play the interview that I did with Claudia Clark. Let me go ahead and get that queued up. And then we can go ahead and get that one with Claudia Clark going. So let's go ahead and get that running, and then we'll come back after the interview. It's a little bit. Here we go. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us once again. Claudia Clark is the author of the upcoming book just released yesterday, Dear Barack, The Extraordinary Partnership of Barack Obama and Angela Merkel. Disruption Books, October 19, 2021 is the one publishing it. She received her Bachelor's of Arts degree in History and Public Policy from Michigan State University. She was the president of the College Democrats at Michigan State and was active in Amnesty International Now and pro-choice groups. Clark holds a Master's of Arts in Labor and in Industrial Relations from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, a Master's in U.S. History with an emphasis on women's history from San Jose State University, and a Master's of Social Work, MSW, from the University of Michigan with an emphasis in community organizing. She and her husband resides in Berlin, Germany, where she previously served as National Get Out the Vote, GoTV coordinator for the Democrats Abroad, the Germany chapter. Welcome to Politics Done Right, Claudia. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely so. I mean, actually, when all this was happening in Germany, the new elections, etc., I kind of followed it with the expectation that we would start to see a curve away from what we have been seeing, not only here in the United States, but throughout the world on sort of a rightward move. What can you first tell me about the administration of Angela Merkel?
Angela Merkel, for the last, 16 years, has been the head of Germany's Christian Democratic Union, or center-right party. And initially, when she started, she was very, she was conservative. But as the years progressed, the longer she was in office as chancellor, the more she moved her center-right party to the center. And so she made a lot of policy decisions in the later years of her chancellorship. For example, opening the German borders to Syrian refugees, to attempting to phase Germany away from using coal, that kind of thing. And that started, in the late 2015 kind of time period. So, and as she has done that, it has created a dichotomy in Germany, because on the one hand, her party members were upset with her for moving the party too far to the right, her party members were concerned because too far to the left or center. And on the other hand, the people from the liberal side still thought she was too conservative. So she was kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it was interesting because she saw the writing on the wall in 2017 when she was elected for her fourth term. While it is true she won re-election, her party did the worst that it had done since I think it was World War II. And a lot of people were concerned because it was some of her policies. And then the following year in 2018, the other various German states, Germany is made up of 16 Bundesstaates, right? And they had state elections, and her party was taking a beating in that regard as well. Meanwhile, the far right party, the AfD, and the Greens were building momentum, and so she made the decision to step down after her term ended this past September. And what's interesting is that we still don't know who's going to be chancellor. They're still kind of working out the details. But the candidate that was replaced her in the Christian Democratic Union, he took a really bad beating. He had done worse. The Christian Democratic Union had done worse than they'd ever done. And some people think it was because of the quality of the candidate. I try to stay kind of neutral on what happened and having an opinion. But I really think it's more than that. I think this is very typical. We see this in the United States too. 16 years of having one party control a government, it's a long time. And people want to change. And that was very evident as early as 2017 that people want to change. And so I'm not surprised that her party didn't do as well as expected. What I am surprised is how incredibly close it was, because I kind of expected it to be a landslide, because things were indicating that people want to change. They wanted it in a drastic way.
But would you have expected a landslide on the left side or the right side?
I was expecting. I was expecting it. We were hearing it pretty much on the left okay. side, and it looks like the new chancellor will be from the center left party,
right, the Social Democrat. Yeah.
But we don't know for sure. But not only that, but the way the German government works is that they form a coalition. The parties that receive the most votes.
I think they have enough votes if the Social Democrats and the Green Party unite, right?
Right. Yes. And the holdout right now is the Free Democratic Party, and that's kind of they're the free market.
Right.
Market party. They don't believe in government regulation. It's kind of let the markets.
They're the neoliberals.
Yeah. And so it's looking like I'm in the States now, but I'm still trying to follow what's going on in Germany. But it looks like they're really close to forming a coalition between the three. And then when the way they form coalitions in Germany is that once they decide that they want to form a government together, then they choose their chancellor. Then what they do is they put a platform together, and then they decide who is going to be cabinet positions from which party.
From which parties,
and so that all kind of comes together.
I think that is a healthier system anyway, because it gives a lot of opinions. It doesn't, you don't have to be one or the other, because at the end you can actually get a coalition put together that represents more than one brand.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the United States, it's kind of a winner take all thing.
Exactly.
And that I don't think is particularly fair. But the one thing that I think is really interesting about this is right after in the days right after the election, there were talks, because the way the vote looked, the center left party, or the CPU, received the most votes, and then the CDU, and then the Green Party candidate, and then the FDP. So that was kind of the
right.
ranking. And it looked like the Green Party and the FDP, the Free Democratic Party, so the people that came in third and fourth, they were going to decide with whom they wanted to form a coalition.
Right.
They were going to decide, okay, who's going to be the new chancellor? Is it going to be Scholz from the left, or is it going to be Laschet from the right? And that was a little interesting because it seemed like it should be the other way around. It should be, okay, it seems like it should have been one of Scholz or Laschet deciding with whom they wanted to work, but it was the other, it's opposite. And I think it's really interesting. And
in other words, the minor parties were the one picking who the winners are going to be, as opposed to these guys saying, we are going to choose you and you to come on the coalition.
And it's kind of counterintuitive, because the voters had spoken, and based upon the voting, the voters wanted Scholz to be the chancellor. But it looked like there was a possibility, because Laschet initially, I still don't think he has officially resigned yet.
Right.
But it looked like, despite what the voters wanted, these other people could still come in and decide that they wanted Laschet instead as chancellor. So it was kind of interesting, and it's counterintuitive to what we have in the States. But I do think it is definitely a lot healthier, because this whole winner take all thing that the United States has, you win all you need is 260 electoral votes. And
but it's actually worse in the United States in that we don't really have a democracy. 2 senators per state, when a state has half a million people and the other one has 40 something million. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about your book. What got you into writing that book, Barack, the love affair between Barack and Angela Merkel?
That's a complicated question. I happened to, we were still living in the States at the time, and I happened to turn on the final press conference between Obama and Merkel in 2016, post-election. It was Obama's final trip to Berlin as president, and I had been following Merkel's career because my husband and I knew at some point we were going to move to Germany, and I just remember Merkel being so visibly upset when a reporter asked her, "What are you going to do? This is your last working relationship with one another in a formal capacity. What are you going to do?" And Merkel just looked like she was about to cry, which is so atypical of her.
Right.
And so I started thinking, okay, this is interesting. we'll see what happens. And then I happened to watch the first encounter between Merkel and Trump in March of 2017. And when Merkel visited Washington, and Trump would not even shake Merkel's hand. And it was, total 180. And I learned that Obama was visiting Germany later that year in May for it was the 500th anniversary of Reformation. And I learned that Obama's very, very first trip overseas post-presidency was to Berlin to visit Merkel. And I thought, okay, there's something here. There's something really interesting about their friendship. And at this point, my husband and I knew we were moving to Germany. I don't speak German, despite my best efforts. I have trouble with the language. So I knew I needed to do something that constructive with my time. And I figured, I'm concerned with what's going on in the world with Brexit and with the alt-right taking control in Poland. And the telling thing about Obama and Merkel's relationship is they're for all intents and purposes, they're from different political parties. But they put their differences aside and work together because they knew it was in the best interest. And so I thought, this is a policy lesson. Other world leaders can learn from this, that in today's globalized world, it's more imperative now than it was since World War II, since the Cold War, that allied world leaders learn to work together. And while that's the case, you see on the other extreme, you've got more, Trump and Brexit, you've got countries trying so hard to separate themselves because they think they're trying to keep their borders safe. And I actually think that's the worst approach, because, with wars no longer entail just invading another country militarily, but somebody can do plot a terrorist attack from their apartment in Belgium for bombing in Paris. And it's imperative that world leaders be able to share intelligence and talk and communicate with one another. And I'm just concerned with what the toll and that things are taking the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, when you saw the relationship between Barack and you said that he flew, the first flight was to Germany. How was his reception, and did they really play that up pretty big out there, or?
They made a big deal about it. I think there were approximately 7,000 participants that visited, because what it was an open forum where Obama and Merkel spoke with a couple of clergy members and some other activists. And so, they had the forum, and then you looked around the crowd, and there were people who had signs saying, "Welcome back, Mr. President," and "Can we keep you, Mr. President?" and "Du bist ein Berliner." So you could feel the momentum. And I moved to Germany in September of 2017, and the Germans, I saw a lot of how the Germans liked Obama when I was doing my research, but since I've been here, it is legitimate. People would, when they found out I was an American, they would just ask me, why isn't Obama president anymore? Can he become president again? And then, my broken German, I'm like, nein, no. And then it's, well, why not? And so, in my broken German, I have to try and tell them, because our constitution won't allow it. Well, why is that? That's dumb. So it was, the Germans absolutely loved him, and even now. And so, and I think that played a large part in the relationship between Merkel and Obama, is because she knew how popular he was.
I still remember that huge thing that he had in Berlin. I think it was Berlin, when he had that big thing in the park, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people showed up to that. It was amazing.
Yeah, 200,000 people.
Imagine that, and he wasn't even running for a place in Germany. But it's interesting that you said Merkel and Obama they were from two different parties, which is true based on the names of the parties. But ironically, places like England and places like Canada, Germany, their center right look nothing like what we like to call center right. They believe in all these social programs that we need here in the United States, but we are called socialists for wanting them. Your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, yeah, and when I talk to people, I'm very careful to say, technically speaking, they are from different political parties, but you're not comparing apples to apples,
Right.
because the the Republican Party now in the United States, it's not the fiscal conservative party of, say, Reagan. It has been taken over by extremists and religious right wing, and it is definitely not, the fiscal conservative and the free market. That is definitely not the case. So I think that the Republican Party of today in the United States is almost equivalent to what is taking form in the rest of Europe right now. In Germany, the AfD, which stands for Alternative for Deutschland, and that's the anti-immigrant, that's the the anti-Semitism. It's building momentum in Germany, but it's still a minority, and the center right is a lot more. The center right in Europe, not just Germany, but in Europe, is a lot more. It really truly is center, and it is really difficult to try and compare political parties.
Yeah, it is amazing. That is what I've noticed in because you go to you ask a conservative government in England or Merkel, would you like to go ahead and change your healthcare system to a more free market-based healthcare system? They'll say, "Are you crazy? The people won't allow that." Which is an interesting thing. Now, as far as your book is concerned, I know it was released yesterday. What's the reception? Are you really getting it out there, or?
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised at the reviews that I'm getting. I shouldn't say surprised. I'm excited about it, because
excited. That's the right word. Yeah.
One of the things what I really wanted to focus on was the positive side. I'm disturbed at what's happening in terms of how negative and nasty things have gotten. And one of the reviews I've gotten, it was called a delightful, because it was, in a world where politics is often so scathing and so nasty. I talk about how well they got along, and yes, they had their differences, but despite their differences, they worked together, and they learned from each other, and they helped one another, and how it's a nice change of pace, and I think that's what people will need to see. Now, if you want, I make no bones about my disdain for Trump, but Trump wasn't the focus of the book. I talk about Trump at the very, very end, when I talk about how he managed to undermine everything Merkel and Obama had done together.
Right.
But the purpose of the book was not to bash Trump. It wasn't to bash Brexit. It was more of this is how world leaders what they can accomplish when they put their mind to it, when they put democracy and the well-being of society above their own personal beliefs or tastes.
Now, living in Germany and coming for some time now, I guess you lived in Germany for about 3 years or so. From 17 to now, right? Coming back to
we're still living.
How do you? By the way, is your husband German, or you just?
No, we're both Americans, and there are a lot of reasons why we decided to move to Germany. I've got family there, but a lot of it was my husband was, he's an engineer and he worked in Silicon Valley, and he was tired of the 8-hour work weeks. I got death threats from people because I supported the Affordable Care Act.
Gotcha.
And I felt like I was a stranger in my own country. I felt my beliefs better aligned with what those of the European Union.
So let me ask you this. That is amazing that you're saying that, and I'm interested because I've interviewed people that have permanently relocated to Canada, permanently relocated to England, UK. And now your relocation to Germany, are you becoming a German citizen as well, or a German resident? How does that work?
My husband has permanent residence. Because I came with him, he's had the work permit, I was able to come in with him, but he could get residency sooner than I could. And the minute he could actually qualify, we'd been here long enough and he had made enough money, he applied for residency. And we're talking about, we have a couple more years before we can actually qualify for German citizenship.
Right.
And we would have to, Germany doesn't allow dual citizenship, so we would have to give up.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. See, Panama, where I'm from, we can be dual citizens. I didn't know that didn't occur in Germany.
Now, the interesting thing is with this recent election, one of the things the SPD does want to look at is granting dual citizenship.
Right.
So by the time we're eligible, and I think it's 2 or 3 more years, it might be a moot point, and we might be able to do both. I'm on the fence on whether I want to give up my U.S. citizenship. We have to file U.S. taxes, so we have to file U.S. taxes and German taxes. So it's a pain.
Right.
We don't really don't foresee going back to the United States. So my position is I don't really care. I just want to be able to vote. And I can still, I can't vote in Germany, but I still can vote in the United States. So.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing about it is you have time to think about it. And if one doesn't have to give up a U.S. citizenship, you really don't. So if they change it, that's great. I intend to keep both of my citizenships. I think there's value in that. But that is great. Now, we're coming close to the end. Is there anything that you want to tell me that I should have asked you that I didn't?
I think the one thing that I would like to emphasize about about the book is that it is something that it provided an opportunity for 2 people who skeptical of one another, and how they went from being skeptical of one another to, Merkel cried when she said goodbye to Obama for the final time. And you tell that to Germans and they're like, she did what? Because it is so
uncultural, so uncharacteristic. Yeah, out of character.
Right. And so I think it's important for people in today's globalized world, as polarized as we are. I'm a political activist myself. I spent my entire life being a political activist. And I understand more than anything, more than anyone, the fine line between selling out and compromise. It's very gray. And I think we've gotten to the point where nobody wants to work with someone from the other side because they don't want to be seen. And look at what it has gotten us. And we're having culture wars on a public health issue that should be resolved, but people have turned it into culture wars and political. And that is just silly and it's dangerous. And I think the lesson you can learn from Obama and Merkel is they didn't agree on a lot of things. They compromised. And as a result, the Paris Climate Agreement was signed, the Iran nuclear. And we need to get away from this. I'm not gonna, this person voted for a Republican, this person went to an anti-gay church 20 years ago, so I'm not gonna vote for them, or I'm not gonna work with, that's dangerous and that's getting us nowhere. And so I think we need to shift the conversation back to saying it's okay to work with somebody from it's okay to have differences of opinion. You work together and you compromise, and that just isn't happening anymore.
You know what, Claudia, I think that is a great place to end. And I think that sentiment is very important for all of us who are activists, journalists, activist writers, activists on the floor, to actually take that into account. It's not a sellout to want to work with somebody that may be diametrically opposed to your beliefs. Thank you so kindly, Claudia Clark, author of the upcoming book, Dear Barack, The Extraordinary Partnership of Barack Obama and Angela Merkel. Go read the book. It has great, prescient information for you. Thank you so kindly, Claudia, for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed talking to her, learned a lot from her as well. Don't forget, folks, don't forget, you are on Politics Done Right. And let's see, it's that time, right? It's that time. Please consider becoming a part of the PDR Posse, become a part of our team. Please go ahead and if you so kindly can, if you are able to, please support what we do. Just click on that join button if you are on YouTube. Click that join button if you are on YouTube. If you are on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, you can still contribute by going ahead and support us at politicsandright.com/YouTube, politicsandright.com/YouTube. Alternatively, you can support us at politicsandright.com/Patreon, which we need 1,000 members here and 1,000 members at the YouTube one as well. And of course, we always take PayPal, so you can support us at politicsandright.com/PayPal, politicsandright.com/PayPal. And you see those books that scroll all the time? Those are books. You can get that at politicsandright.com/what again? Books. politicsandright.com/books. And if you want to find that catch-all support for how are the different methods that you can use to support Politics and Right, please go to politicsandright.com/support. We could not do this without you. In my move to my temporary move to DC to take care of my daughter, if it weren't for you guys, we would still be coming over with crappy equipment as it is right now. We're able to broadcast in full bits per what is it again? BTS, bits per second, all that good stuff. We were able to do all that is necessary to do a good job. Before I forget, let me introduce everybody. Bridge MCP, welcome aboard. Bridge was the first one to remind me, Egberto, your sound is off on your new wireless device. The sound is off. Tom C was there secondly to say, Egberto, now you are loud and clear. Bridge says, Petition Queen, my good friend Linda says, we like you, Egberto, and I love you guys too. Let's see who else we've got here with us. We also have Tom C. Tom says, per New York Times, lawmakers, Brazilian leader Jair Bolsonaro accused of crimes against humanity, mass homicide, and genocide in pandemic response. I read that. I wish somebody would do that. In fact, I think the international community could do that on Trump. He got over 700,000 people killed. E2247 says, Anpetu waste everyone. Good day. Welcome aboard, E2247. Who else is here with us? E2247, Ashley and Egberto, thinking of you in a good way. I thank you so kindly. Bridge says, always prayers for Ashley. Thank you, Bridge MCP. Tom C says, per New York Times, lawmakers accuse it. Yeah, I just read that one. Let's see what else we got here. Bridge MCP says, I read that yesterday. What else have we got here? Welcome aboard, Eric Hayes. I'll see that later. Yvette Avery Herod, welcome aboard, my dear friend. Eric Hayes says, how is this helping America and the climate change agendas if we're not changing, making things more expensive? I don't know where you're coming from on that one, brother, but I know it must be a reinterpretation of something, but hey, we'll get there sometime. Maywood says, good morning and hello from Long Beach, California. How you doing, my brother? Just realized what time it is. I know it's a bad time at noon. We've lost all our most of our 4 or 3 central people, but you know, we'll find some sort of a common ground. A lot of people are watching it on the podcast, however, and I'm going to give you that new podcast area in a little bit. Maywood says, good morning from Long Beach. Tom C says, Trump had a great relationship with autocratic leaders like Putin, Erdogan, Bolsonaro, Duterte, Singh, or man, you named them all, Tom C. You named them all. Maywood said, it keeps freezing. I leave and come back, it restarts and freezes about the same place. I don't know why. Everything that I've seen here shows no drop packets. Let me make sure I'm not lying to you. I've got, out of millions of packets, 7 drop packets, so we should be okay. Ram and Nick Burns confirmation hearing yesterday was sobering. Everyone should watch the replay. I didn't see that one. Capitalism on full display if you would read between the lines. So I tell you. Petition Queen, of course, they get on. All right, let's see what else we got here. Hi from Upper Michigan, Barbara Wiltz. Welcome aboard. Okay, folks, I have another important video for you. Are these increases, these wage increases inflationary? I beg to differ. This is what I was to play yesterday, but we get a chance to play it today. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. Chuck Todd and his minions were talking about, the wage there's a whole lot more jobs than there are people now, and workers have the power now. And that is absolutely true. But you know what? Workers have always had the power. They just never asserted it because of the enslaved mentality that this economic system had placed in all of our minds. But when we realize that we have the power, whether there are shortages of jobs or not, we have the power because collectively we could always be our brother's keepers and not allow corporations to get on our case. But here we have now a Republican pundit that is trying to say, oh, well, if we keep getting these wage increases, it will be inflationary. I want you to listen to the piece first. It's all good, most of it, till he has those kinds of statements. And then I want to talk about inflationary pressures based on wages. Listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Kimberly, workers have never had more leverage. And when you look around, and this is like one of those things that's like every national news organization discovered strikes this week. But the fact is, it is happening. Look, we've seen it in our own organization, more openness to organizing, more openness to unions. This is one of the more interesting consequences of COVID.
Yeah, well, I think it's an accelerator, actually, because we saw that sort of movement toward unionization in places like newsrooms coming up for a couple of years before this. And then you add COVID, where people realized, okay, if I'm not making enough money, if I don't have enough benefits and you're calling me essential and forcing me to go to the job, I'm rethinking about what this means. And that really put more leverage on the part of workers before companies could pay them or not pay them whatever they want to. And things have changed in a really rapid way. And that's what this Striketober is representing.
And John, this is not, there was always to me a very distinct line, on labor unions between Democrats and Republicans. Not with the Trump base.
No, look, I think this is a generational moment. Yeah. For the last 20 years, people have been frightened to lose their jobs. It's not just because of the economic dislocations of the meltdown of 2008. Because of healthcare and the worries about changing your job, because of the stuff that happened as a result of 9/11, all kinds of things. Almost all the power in the United States has been in the hands of employers, in part because of the anxiety of the workforce, and that goes from the very poor to the very wealthy. Yeah. That is an anxiety shared by everybody, and suddenly we have 9 or 10 or 11 million jobs open in the United States, and that's new. And I think the psychology of the employers or these corporations have yet to shift. I mean, they know they need to pay people a lot more money. There are all these, Amazon is advertising, paying people a lot more than $15 an hour and all of that. But I think at John Deere and some of these other places, my guess is that the corporate culture has not yet shifted into the idea that we got to be a lot nicer to our workforce.
Yeah, I mean, look, people who in Washington are surprised by this dynamic have fundamentally misunderstood what happened in the pandemic when people with white-collar jobs stayed home and complained about how hard it was to work on Zoom, and people with blue-collar jobs who were essential went to work every day and braved the pandemic. I mean, if you think you had a hard time working from home, or you still are while you were working on Zoom, and you don't understand why folks who've been out in it every day are striking and are very upset, I don't know what to tell you.
And our service economy is a very labor-intensive economy. And now we're having, one of the, let me put up some of the companies here. Instacart is one of the places that's having one of these labor. I mean, I do think that this new sector of the economy, that factory workers were really important to our economy in the 50s and 60s.
Now it's the service economy.
The deliverers.
The DoorDash, the Instacart, people who
are not paid very well.
They're not paid very well. And so, are we going to have a generational change that this is COVID, we're going to look back 20 years from now and say that was the instigator for this? Or are we going to wake up 3 years from now and say, oh, well, it was COVID, and guess what, we're going to go back to normal because of all these other structural challenges we still have, which is, getting back to healthcare. That is still a fundamental problem, or, so many of the other inequities that we have in our system. So, look, I'm very interested to see where this all goes, because the disruptors that we've expected in the past to make significant changes, at least in our politics, whether it was 9/11 or whether it was the pandemic, didn't make big structural changes to our politics, but our economy, that's a whole different story.
All right, and go ahead.
I was just saying, speaking of the economy, though, this is all happening at a time of rising and apparently non-transitory inflation. And if wages have to go up significantly, that's inflation too. I mean, there are inflationary, this is a potential inflationary spiral. You want to talk about political consequences.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry that people can talk about how this might be great. This might be great for Democrats because it's the new activism and all of that. This is not good for Biden either way. It's not good for Democrats either way. They have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And we could be looking at inflation continuing to go up in part justifiably in order to pay these
Kimberly,
people
it's a
more.
weird economy. We have plenty of jobs, and it costs more to just keep your house.
Yes, I mean, but one part of that is, you can have fears about inflation, but the structure was unsustainable. You had this gig economy where people were working second and third jobs just to keep food on the table, just to pay for the health care that the law required them to have. That was going to be unsustainable. So this conflagration of issues really brought it to the fore. And yes, you have these open jobs, but I think when you look at it, study after study, it shows if you pay people more, they will take the jobs. It's really shifting from that corporate perspective that they can have large profits to saying, no, to be profitable, you need to treat your employees well.
And that is so important. If you want to be profitable, treat your employees well. But here's what they don't, and I wish these pundits would articulate it a little bit better. They talk about increasing wages. In other words, that's on one side of the balance sheet. Increases inflation. Why? Because to pay people more, you have to raise the prices of your goods if you want to keep the profits the same. But here's the other part of the equation they don't tell you. To constantly have rising profits, to constantly have the rising price of stocks, you always hear people talk about growth. There are two ways to attain growth, either the totality of growth or the delta of growth. The delta of growth means you reduce all your expenses so that you actually have more profits, and those profits go to the few who own the corporation. Or you simply raise prices again so that the profits will be as high as those who are investing want it to be. So they talk about inflationary pressures caused by wages. What about inflationary causes by the amount that you're paying the investors? The millions, the billions, the trillions of dollars that have gone in the pharmaceutical industries to the shareholders, that's inflationary. And it didn't go to the employees, it went to the shareholders, extracting money out of the middle class, extracting money out of the poor, out of our taxes, out of the government. That's inflationary. Has nothing to do with wages. Let's understand economics appropriately. And if we did understand economics, we would and that's why we need to teach that to our people. That's why people need to listen to these programs. That's why people need to promote these programs, why they need to share these programs. Because here is the deal. Our wages, people say, well, we don't want to pay the employees so much. And you'll even have some employees saying that. If wages go up too much, there's going to be inflation and it'll cause a recession. And then you'll say, well, wait a minute. If profit gets too high, that's coming out of the same pot. Isn't that going to cause a recession for having profits too high? Look. What we have and we've had in this country since its inception is the theft of the labor and intellect of the American people. We have an economic system that abuses people. It first started as slavery and indentured servitude with a few employees. Now we have a complete form of what I call antiseptic slavery for most people. And when we understand that, we will start trying to liberate ourselves from an economic system that depends on paying us less than we are worth. And anytime we ask for more, they say that is inflationary or we will have to raise prices. Well, you drop your profits. You drop your profits, which means you are sitting on your butt doing nothing while other people work for your benefit. If that isn't antiseptic slavery, I don't know what is. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news. Yes, that is antiseptic slavery. Welcome aboard, Germality. Welcome aboard, May Wood. Eric Hayes, I saluted you already. Nanette Birdsmith is here. Paul Fleming is here. And Bada Bada Wilkes is here. Welcome aboard. Let's see. Germality says, that's clearly the privilege that don't recognize their position. They're ignorant. Well, sometimes yes, sometimes yes. May Wood says, do you think that maybe they had another crash? What are we talking about? Let me see. Maybe you have to go to the previous message. Anyway, let's see what else we got here. Para ver quién más está hablando. We have Quad AUKUS and weapons industry take over Indo-Pacific quarter of Earth. is not a great prospect. That comes from E2247. And let's see what else we have to read for you. It keeps freezing. I don't know why you keep freezing, Maywood. Go to YouTube. YouTube is working fine. Sometimes you know how it goes with Facebook and all kinds of stuff. Paul Fleming, I hope I called you out already. Welcome aboard. Maywood said, do you think that maybe they had another crash? Who are we talking about, Maywood? Who are we talking about? About another crash? Let me answer that before I go to the next video. But I do want to get the other video in. It should be coming in shortly. Okay, let's see. Para ver. All right. Anyhow, the other video, I want to set it up. We continuously vote against our own interests, right? And my contention is we do that because we too often are not as informed as we should. And many a times, I think that is our own doing. I think sometimes we need to be better at what we do. And I try to learn as much. You know, there are times that I write articles and somebody would write back and say, it would have been nice if you had put it this way or that way. And I try to absorb all that kind of information to constantly make me a better communicator going forward. That is what we all should do. And I want you to listen to this because what Ruben Gallegos did today when he was interviewed by Ballard, I think was a great thing. Check this out, then we'll take it on the other side. Ruben Gallegos from Arizona, representative from Arizona and a member of the Progressive Caucus, has a message, and the way he talks about the Build Back Better social infrastructure plan is important. It's something every Democrat needs to learn how to do. I want you to listen to this, and then let's go ahead and take it on the other side. Check out how he does it.
Arizona Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallegos, who's a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Congressman, it's a pleasure to see you this morning. There's been a lot of reporting over the past 24 to 36 hours that the likely price tag for this reconciliation bill will be under $2 trillion. Tuition-free community college out. The expanded child tax credit likely be extended for just 1 year. The duration of the paid family leave could be reduced from 12 weeks to 4. What do you make of this potential outcome?
Well, look, we don't focus on the money aspect. You know, the 2 trillion, 3 trillion, what we focus on is what impact you're going to have on everyday Americans' lives that are trying to recuperate from, the recession that was caused by this pandemic and from the recessions of the past. So, we're here to compromise, to bring the standards of Americans up to what we believe they deserve. And if that means that we're going to have some smaller programs running for a shorter time but are still making an impact to get it through, then we'll do that. But I want to point out something that's very important for people to understand. This is not a Progressive Caucus position. 98% of the Democratic Caucus has been with the president and the vice president on reconciliation. We're just dealing with 2 holdouts in the Senate and a few members in the House. So this is not just a progressive position. This is a position that's been held by the whole caucus really since the beginning of the year.
And important that you say that it really doesn't, you're not looking at the numbers, but there is a huge difference between 1.5 trillion, 2 trillion, and $3.5 trillion. I mean, these are monstrous numbers.
Not really. I mean, look, this is a 10-year program. We're talking about over 10 years. Nobody says that the defense budget is $7.7 trillion, but that actually is what it is if you actually did it the same way that we're actually doing the budgeting when it comes to the social infrastructure here. So we're talking about essentially $100 to $200 billion more per year for over 10 years for an economy that is about $22 to $23 trillion and growing every year at that point. And in my opinion and opinion of many economists, this will actually help restart the economy, get people out of the poverty that they find themselves in poverty or just general stagnation, and really reignite the American middle class.
What Ruben Gallegos just did was gave perspective. Nobody complains about a defense budget that does nothing but blow things up or create wealth for a whole bunch of corporations. $7.7 trillion over 10 years. Nobody says it that way. They try to make it smaller. Oh, $700 billion, and still it's smaller than the $200 to $300 billion we're asking for the social infrastructure program, for the Build Back Better policies, right? Look, we have an economy that has been stealing. That's nothing more than thuggery against the middle class, nothing more than thuggery against the working people. In other words, it's been extracting a whole lot of money from the individuals, not paying them what they're worth, and transferring up to the top. And now we're asking some of the wealthy to pay their fair share, not just their fair share, pay your darn taxes. $150 billion in unpaid taxes. Even that they are complaining about. In other words, please don't bother us about breaking the law, is what the rich is saying now. We owe money, we won't pay it. You want to pass bills that cause tax increases, we don't want it. Yet they have no problems stealing, pilfering the poor, pilfering the middle class. And we have senators like Senator Sinema who says, oh, we don't want to raise taxes on the wealthy. Come on, we have had the thievery occurring in this country for too long. And any senator that doesn't support Build Back Better, actually we need a whole lot more than Build Back Better. Any senator not supporting that does not deserve to hold the office. And what we have to do is start informing people with the truth in such a manner that they start voting their interest. The reason we can't get it across is that too many times we are fumbling with messages. And what Ruben Gallegos just did right there was to show how you can start, how you can begin giving perspective to messages. When Americans see that their monies are simply going as a transfer method to the wealthy, as a transfer method to corporations and the rich, they will start and continue to start looking at things a bit differently. We spend a lot of time. Absolutely so. Before I forget, right after this program, I go live on KPFT 90.1 FM. Of course, I pre-recorded it and it goes live on air 90.1 FM in Houston, Texas. So those of my listeners in Houston, Texas, if you get another treat of a program that I prepared this early this morning for KPFT 90.1 FM. And of course, if you want to listen to it, anybody around the country can simply go to kpft.org, kpft.org to see it, to listen to it, or just go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/politicsdoneright, youtube.com/Egberto Willies, youtube.com/Egberto Willies. If you want to actually see the program, I think it premieres at exactly noon Central, which is 1 Eastern time. In other words, in about 6 minutes, where we are on KPFT as well, doing our thing. Anyhow, folks, that was the last video of the day. Now it's completely to yours truly. So if you have any other messages that you want me to address before we close this baby down, just let me have it. But it's kind of funny because Germality says, LOL, they don't say please when they're pilfering us. They don't say please. They just demand that we giveth everything to them. It always behooved me, right? Where in some states, you can't quite, let's say you have your roof and you have a water collection bottles. Some states actually prevent you from collecting rainwater. Why? Because they want to make water a commodity. The things that we have allowed corporations to force our politicians to do, even though there are more of us than them, it's amazing. But all of it comes from us not acknowledging our worth. If we, for once, realize that we are empowered, all of that would go away. Petition Queen says, we need more parties. Like Germany discussed earlier, multi-party elections can allow for more collaboration, a point made by Lee Drutman. That is absolutely true, Petition Queen. In fact, that's what we're talking about with Claudia Clark, because right now when you have either Democrat or Republican and neither one fits a particular person, there's no reason to compromise, because it's going to be, as she called it, winner take all, which is pretty much the case, winner take all. But in the case of the United States, it's not even about winner takes all. It's about minority take all, minority of people take all. Look at, we had in these last elections several Republican presidents, and only once did they ever win the popular vote. Bush didn't win the popular vote. Trump didn't win the popular vote, not ever. Yet, what I find ironic, and what I find that the rest of the world talks about, and we tend to try to ignore. We had a president, Donald Trump, that came into power without a mandate. Donald Trump came into power with a minority of the people. In other words, most people didn't want him. Yet the changes that he made to our judiciary were transforming and will have an effect for decades to come. So we are such an undemocratic country who likes to pat ourselves on the back and say we are exceptional. We are exceptionally, I won't use the word, to have allowed someone that did not win the election democratically to change many of the structures of government, and some of them that are very difficult to undo. Supreme Court. Only way to undo the Supreme Court is to either add justices or find a way to impeach one, and neither one of those seem to be happening because Democrats don't fight the way they need to fight to support the people, and there are a lot of reasons why. Some of it is just it's not in the nature of some, but some of them are simply a reflection of what the plutocracy wants them to do. Be in a party, not necessarily a party that they care to be in, but be in a space to take space to ensure that a lot does not get done. Folks, if you're on YouTube, give me that thumbs up. Give me that thumbs up to make sure the algorithm continues to work. Likewise, you can support us if you are on YouTube by going ahead and clicking that join button to become a part of our PDR posse. Please consider doing that. Please consider, if you're not on YouTube, if you're on some other platform, or if you're on YouTube but don't see the join button, go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Alternatively, you can support us on Patreon. We need a lot of patrons as well. Go to politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. We accept support as well on PayPal. Consider going to politicsdoneright.com/PayPal, politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. Consider visiting our store. Get a hoodie, get a t-shirt, get whatever to really help promote what we're doing. politicsdoneright.com/store. And of course, you can get our books at politicsdoneright.com/books. And if you want to find that catch-all for all the Politics Done Right, go ahead and give us support at politicsdoneright.com/support. Anyway, folks, I want to thank you so kindly for having spent this time with Politics Done Right. Please remember to share because most people watch this offline at their leisure. 12 o'clock Eastern, 11 Central is not the best time to have the program, so most people watch it on podcast. One other thing I want to do, I want to go ahead and give you a link to our new podcast repository where you can cross-link to all our different podcasts. Please visit it and you can become a member of our podcast there as well, and that is another way to provide support for us. Let me get to the chat screen so I can put that in there. There is aquí está. There is our link to our podcast. But anyhow, no Lone Ranger or cavalry is coming, not to save anyone. 2022 state houses and gubernatorial elections are the deal to invest in. Agreed. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know exactly how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.